But if you don't do your homework, or if you're not familiar with this company's safety procedures, and you don't look at that, when you're putting a bid together, then, you could potentially lose money.
It's the ProfitDig radio show. Let's talk construction.
Evening, folks. Chris Work here with ProfitDig with Jeff Spencer.
Yep.
Jeff?
How's it going, Chris?
It's going good. How are you?
Good, man.
I like it.
Yeah.
Energy.
Yeah.
Energy is
That's
what
it.
we're after here at
That's
ProfitDig. Yes. Well, that's fantastic. I love it. We need a little more comedy in our content.
We do.
Sometimes,
We do.
Yeah, we rarely take a comical approach to.
We're kind of dry,
Very dry.
Yeah.
Very dry.
We better wet our whistle.
Talking about
so
construction as dry as possible. Not necessarily.
No.
Anyway, we got a good topic.
Yes, we do.
You're telling me a story. Well, let me take a step back. I'm always like, let me take a step back. That's going to be my new thing. I'm always taking a step back.
Yeah.
Anyway, OSHA standards.
Yeah.
You all have to meet them. And
We
hopefully you all do. I know you do, but our listeners and everyone else out there,
Well, and our guys, they do, we do our OSHA training, every year. We do a 10 and a 30 every year to keep them up to date.
Yep.
All of our employees have cards, and so they've been through the proper procedures.
Yep.
And proper training.
Yep. So you've met the requirements. You're putting a bid together, and you've already counted for that on the job site.
Right.
Well, you get out there, and then Mr. Contractor comes along, and suddenly he doesn't realize your process or maybe how you're doing a certain thing. And he said, well, no, we have this type of requirement. And you're
Right.
like, well, Mr. Contractor, we meet OSHA standards. Everything is good here. He says, but you haven't met my standards.
Right.
So a lesson for someone who either one hasn't made this mistake, and I know lots have, you don't want to get run off the job site due to safety requirements.
Right.
And you've already accounted for this in your bid, so you don't want to cost yourself a bunch of money.
Yeah.
What are some tips?
Well, it's a lot of GCs out there, just because your guys are up to date on OSHA qualifications, there's a lot of contractors out there, especially, your larger contractors that you may be a sub under, they have their own safety. Excuse me. And you'll find out when you go on a new project with this contractor, you have to sit through a safety orientation. And most of the time, they, depending on what contractor you are, but they'll give you a sticker to put on your hard hat. That way, their field superintendents and their project managers can visually look at the sticker on your hat and know that you've been through their safety training.
Okay.
All right, so we know up front that there's a potential we're going to have to do that. So we usually allocate a little bit of time into our bid, for safety training for this particular project.
Sure.
But what they do is a lot of contractors will take OSHA requirements and then they'll go 1 or 2, 3 steps above.
Just liability protection.
Liability
for them,
protection, yeah.
That it makes them
And
comfortable.
right, and just to show that they're putting the best foot forward and trying to protect their men as best as possible, which that's all fine and good. But if you don't do your homework, or if you're not familiar with this company's safety procedures, and you don't look at that, when you're putting a bid together, then you could potentially lose money. And what I mean by lose money is what they require versus what OSHA requires may be a different set of equipment, a different set of barricades, a different set of harnesses or something of this nature. And all that stuff adds up, and maybe it's traffic control. Maybe they require 2 more flaggers, or whatever it may be, more signage. Whatever that may be that you haven't allocated in your price. It could come back to bite you in the long run.
Yeah.
Of course, once you make that initial contract and do it, this initial job, then you're going to know in the next project you do with this particular company, hey, I've got to have this, and this in place.
Sure.
And some of that stuff, they address in their pre-construction job safety training, but not everything is addressed in there.
Okay, and I was going to ask you about that. So if you've reached out to me to bid on this job, you may or may not have disclosed all of these requirements to me.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
When I'm in the bid process? Mm-hmm. So is it a common practice to say, are there additional safety requirements or things that we need to be aware of?
That is a very good question or a very good email that you need to ask.
Okay.
Especially when dealing with a GC that you have not dealt with in the past.
Sure.
Because their safety requirements may be they're always going to be different from what this contractor is or that contractor is.
Sure.
Most everyone is going to at least meet OSHA requirements.
We hope.
Yeah. But they especially when you got a large scale GC, most of those are pretty legit.
Sure.
They've been fine enough and been through enough stuff that they're going to make sure that they're doing OSHA or more.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I'm going to say probably 85% of the GCs you're going to be submitting a bid to are going to go above and beyond what OSHA requires.
Because they've been burned. And
yes, right. Yeah. So and they take pride in that, and that's a good thing, that they take pride in it. They will give out rewards to their employees, for so many days without a safety violation or a safety incident, where someone's injured or whatever. And they'll give out jackets, they'll give out some kind of rewards, saying that we've been so many days without any safety issues.
Yeah.
And so by doing that, by going a step above, it keeps their guys, and girls, guys and girls both safe that's on a project.
Yeah.
There's still, no matter how prepared you are, there's accidents that still happen.
Things are going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And maybe it's guys that work for the GC, and maybe it's guys that sub from them. But that's what they're trying to prevent. They're trying to force you into doing their guidelines to make sure that, because when you sign a contract with them, you may work for company B, their company A. Well, you are at that point, essentially their employee, because they have a subcontract with you.
Okay.
So you are representing their company.
Yeah.
So if you're injured or one of your guys are injured, then that's a red flag on them.
I got you.
So when you sign a contract, you are pretty much their employee.
Right.
You're working for that company.
Yeah, for that duration.
Yes.
And so what happens if the GC comes out and he says, "Hey, whoa, this is how we do things," and you're like, "Well, Mr. GC, we're meeting OSHA standards, and this is how we've always done that." How do you address that? Just work stop, and then you have to correct whatever it is to meet their standard?
Yep, you're going to have to, it doesn't matter if you do meet OSHA standards, your contract's not with OSHA, your contract's with them. So, you've got to stop and rethink, regather, whatever you're going to do, and try to figure out the most cost-efficient way to make the upgrades or whatever you need to do to meet their safety requirements.
Sure. And hopefully not cost yourself a bunch of money in the process.
But if you do, it's that money's not really lost. That's a lesson you learned, for future projects with this particular contractor.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
And I think our folks will learn from this.
I hope so.
So, thanks so much.
You bet, Chris.
Talk soon.
You have a good one.